Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Bill, and good morning, everybody, body.
Here we go.
Or afternoon, or evening, or middle of the night, whenever you're listening.
Whenever you're listening, that's right. This is podcast number 324, and the description of today's podcast is New Discovery: Why Creative Real Estate Rookies Are Failing at Getting Deals. The description reads, ever wonder why you hear people like Pete and I talk about our deals and you can't seem to get off the ground with one or a few deals consistently? Suppose we could show you some simple basic skills we use with sellers that sell to us. Even more important, what if you not making deals is not your fault? What if there, until now, was a huge gap in creative real estate that was holding you down, even working against you, causing you great and uncomfortable lack of success? Here's another little thought. What if you listened to this podcast, realized what you can change today, and do a deal next week? Think that would be worth your 60 minutes today going through this obvious hidden secret? Think about it. Just like a car is built piece by piece, a mechanic can take it apart piece by piece once he knew how the car was originally built. Today, we're going to put a magnifying glass on you and the process so it is so simple that a fourth grader can do it with you. I'm being a little facetious there, right?
Yeah, you meant a third grader, right?
Now listen up. Things are going to get real very quickly. So I hope I could portray my ideas and thoughts of this podcast. They're a little bit different. So, and I don't know.
Now you think things are different at episode 324, 5, where are we?
Yeah.
You think now?
Yeah.
You're just catching on, huh?
I'm not sure that I could do this the right way, but let's see what happens.
Well, I'm here so that if I don't understand, they don't understand. And I'll say, what? That's the deal, folks.
Yeah. Good. So just to get the housework or housekeeping things out of the way.
Housekeeping. Send me a cheeseburger.
So we record this live. We record this podcast live every Thursday morning at 9:30. We live stream it to Facebook and YouTube. We do Twitter too, but I don't think we've had anybody listen to us on Twitter live. But because Twitter's got a different platform than Twitter, so. Anyways, so we're here. If you want to be part of the podcast or ask questions, you can go to Facebook or you can go to YouTube and you can type in either in the comments or the description section of either platform. You can type in the questions and we get them right here. Just make sure the questions are pertaining to the podcast. If you have another question about something else, you can go to flippinghousesforrookies.com. Top right-hand side, there's a support ticket, and just send those support tickets in. They all come to me. Okay, so I'll be able to answer the support ticket. Also, there's a link in the description of wherever you're watching us or listening to us, and I always put something in that link that pertains to the podcast that will help you with what we're talking about. They're tools or something that I've created or done along the lines, either a checklist or sometimes there's all different kinds of things that we put in there. So make sure you go check the link. And finally, make sure you subscribe to us and you give us a review wherever you're watching us or listening to us so we can get your feedback. Okay, now that's out of the way. Pete, my favorite saying lately is by Zig Ziglar. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to do it almost every podcast, but I'm not exactly succeeding with it because of the topics. but it's from Zig Ziglar. It says you can have everything you want in life if you will help enough people get what they want.
I really like that one.
Yeah. You can have everything you want in life if you will help enough people get what they want. So we're going to talk about that today in this podcast.
Good.
So I'm going to start this, Pete, with this podcast a little bit different than I usually do, because I'm going to start at the end and work my way backwards. We're going to reverse engineer it today, okay?
Okay.
So first thing I want to do is get my throat cleared. I don't know what's going on there this morning, but the first thing I want to do is to define the word auditor.
Auditor.
Yes.
Okay.
Which really comes from the word audit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so definition number one of audit is an official inspection of an individual's or organization's accounts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an official inspection of an individual or an organization's accounts.
Right.
Definition number two is conduct an official examination of various records and transactions for accuracy.
Yeah, my wife as a bookkeeper has to do audits of usually financial statements, make sure everything is right. So totally. Somebody's got to make sure the numbers really jive.
Right. Okay, so now an auditor does both of these types of activities. We can agree on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a specialized definition that most don't know about. An auditor, and you find this in a dictionary. If you go into a good dictionary, you'll find all these definitions. An auditor is a listener. An auditor hears or listens. Right? So we talk about Maxwell Maltz's book, Psycho-Cybernetics, and we talk about Hubbard's book, Dianetics. They both talk about the auditor in that capacity in those books.
Right, because audire is the Latin for listen, and you can think of audio as listen, audio, video, audio, listen. So besides the legal thing, it's really listening. That's what you're going to talk about today, the listening part.
Now watch this. No.
Yeah.
Well, yes and no, but I think you're going to be surprised with what I have today. So watch this.
Oh, okay.
When you're talking to a seller about their decision to sell a house, aren't we, number one, examining and verifying their accounts, like what they owe, taxes, insurance, liens, HOA, etc. Right?
Yeah, like definition 1 and 2, the financial stuff.
And then number two, then don't we listen or hear the problems of the seller, their ideas, plans, and needs and wants?
Holy cow, we're using all the definitions at once. Holy moly. That's true. You got a good point there. You're right.
Right?
Where do you come up with this stuff?
So it occurred to me, Pete, much like a doctor goes through his examination, asks questions, looks for certain things, it should be a standard process. And today I'd like to set some standards on how this process should be done for two reasons. Number one, so you do it the same way each time and build confidence. And then the real reason for today's podcast is number two, so you can review your cycles by listening to the recordings and spot the gross offer errors and fix them. So what I realized is I've been telling folks for a very long time, like if you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, you go all the way down to the bottom of the page, and there's a creative real estate course 101, and you can put your email in there. We used to sell it for $300, and you can get it for free. And then I tell people, that's where all the videos are on the 7 different type of deal strategies, and I explain them on the whiteboard, and if you haven't been there, you should. And by the way, if you haven't been there in the last month or 3 weeks, you should go back, because you don't remember what I talked about, unless you're doing deals and using them. And in the bonus section, there's actually a document called the lease option explain. So what I tell folks to do is to print that 5-page document, right? And then handwrite it 10 times, minimally 5 times, but 10 times is good. So it kind of like burns an impression in your mind, right? And then read it into a recording device like your smartphone, and then listen to it 15 or 20 times. If you actually do that, and I have had students that have, it is incredible how fast you start getting deals. But then it realized, okay, so I'm teaching everybody how to do that, right? That's like, let's just, for a lack of words, that's the technology of how to make an offer.
Right.
Right? But there's no qualifications on you making that offer. Like, how do you qualify if you did it right? What's the standard session sound like?
Right, because people will learn how to do these things, right? And they'll go through the motions. And rookie-wise, we're always worried if it's right or wrong still, right? Mm-hmm. You do it and you go like, but is it okay? Is it safe? Should I do it? Should I not do it? Did I do it right? Doubt, confusion, worry.
So you see what I'm saying? So there has to be something to check yourself on.
Yep.
Right? So not only should you know how to do it so you're doing it right and you can learn it easier, but you need some way to check it. Right?
Well, that's why authors have proofreaders
Yeah.
and editors, and that's why bookkeepers and accountants have auditors who go over all the financial stuff to make sure after it's done that it really, Right. Quality control.
Yeah. Okay. So before you go into so I'm trying to make it so you don't go into a rabbit hole and start working on stuff you're not supposed to be working on.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, think of it this way: if you went into a doctor's office and there wasn't a process, what would happen? I mean, you probably have been in a doctor's office and you sit in a room for like an hour and a half waiting for somebody to come see you.
Yep.
That doctor doesn't have a process. Right? What happens if he were to diagnose you incorrectly? That's the more important thing. I mean, I have literally heard of stories from people that I've met, like in parties and stuff like that over the years, where they're like, oh yeah, my friend, they went in and they were supposed to get like a leg amputated and they took the wrong leg.
Yeah, you hear that on the news sometimes. Sorry, wrong foot. Yeah.
Or they operate on the wrong people. Mm-hmm. Right? So that means there's not a qualifications division there, right? No.
Yeah.
No. What'd you call it? Quality assurance?
Well, quality control.
Quality control. Yeah. There's no way to check it, right? So.
Yeah.
So what happens is if you don't do that, then what are you doing with your seller? You're diagnosing their situation incorrectly, and you're wondering why you're not getting deals. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not even your fault. Yeah. You didn't even know this existed. I didn't. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right? See, up until now, some would consider that I've given them the wrong information, or what I do doesn't work. But I find this silly because I've done hundreds of deals and helped my students do hundreds of deals. Mm-hmm. So it can't be that, I can't be that far off. So why would people think that? Why would they think that I'm doing something wrong and then leave me and say my stuff doesn't work?
Well, there's a lot of talk lately about, follow the science, and some things are and a lot of things aren't. Yeah. But I'm thinking about that because it annoys me. The way to know if something is right or scientific and all that stuff is, did it work? Did you get the results?
Right.
So if you're selling houses, you're selling houses. Are you going to listen to somebody who hasn't sold houses, who just talks a lot? So, I mean, that's easy for me.
Right.
Can you play the song? Can you get the football over the goal line? Or, can you buy and sell the house? Results. It's easy if you look for results.
Not promises. What I'm talking about is that, I come to you and I want to play guitar. Mm-hmm. Right? I want a lesson on how to play guitar. So I stick with it for a couple months, and then I'm like, I can't play the guitar. I'm not that good at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I blame you for not teaching me correctly. Well, maybe it's Peter. I'll try another guitar lesson person.
Yep.
I don't even consider that there's something that I misunderstood or something I don't get or some basic concept that I've missed. I don't even consider that I might be wrong or I might be doing something incorrect. But yet you've made a living at this for 40 years, teaching people how to play guitars and made a living at it. I mean, you pay your bills and you have lots of students and so.
And famous people too, in big bands.
Yeah,
One.
So the point is like, why would I consider you were the problem?
Well, you know what's even funnier to me? I've had people read something in a book, like any course, music lessons, other courses I've taught, and they tell me like, hey, this isn't right in the book. This isn't right in the book.
Right.
The author is wrong, and the student is right. And I go, wait, blah, blah, blah. They go, oh. Right. So people sometimes think the information, the source, the professional is wrong. I don't know if that's arrogance, stupidity, a combination. I don't know what that is, but like, wait, you think you're right and the author is wrong? Oh my God.
My heart dropped. You said, you know what's funny? And I thought you were going to say the sight of me playing a guitar.
No, the sight of
but
funny
you're
that's
right.
funny of you is singing.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's not doing that, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so next someone might consider their training is the issue. Right? So if it's not me, then they realize, okay, well, it's me. I need training. They don't know enough, like there is some hidden secret that they haven't stumbled onto yet. We'll come back to this one. Lastly, what most rookies don't consider fast enough is that maybe the deal just doesn't work. Right?
Yeah, you really can't force it.
The numbers are wrong. Yeah, the numbers are wrong.
You can't force somebody to be a prospect if he's a suspect.
Right.
Can't force them to be motivated if they're not. And if the numbers don't work,
So the numbers are wrong, the seller's intention is not real, or match what you can or can't do or want to do. Right? See, it's a funny thing because we talk about a prospect and we talk about a suspect, right? And in short, a prospect says yes more than no, and a prospect says no more than yes, right? But here's the thing. Are they, what happens when you become a rookie or you are a rookie, you think that prospect and suspect is for all of real estate. Every single house seller, if they have an ad up, they are a prospect. They want to sell their house. They're not suspects. They want to sell their house for one reason or another. What makes them a prospect or suspect is, are they willing to do what we prefer they do? Like the two things, the qualifying point on an opening call that we talk about all the time is, are they willing to take monthly payments or give us a discount?
yep.
And if they're yes to either one of those questions or both of those questions, then they're a prospect for us. If they're no, then they are a suspect for us. Now
That makes a lot of sense.
this is absolutely, positively, most definitely like one of the most important things you can learn about creative real estate. End of story. I mean, it is so simple that most people don't put enough emphasis on it. Because
what's that?
what's that?
And what is it?
What I just told you.
Oh,
If you can't qualify leads, prospect or suspect, quickly, then the suspects will eat you up and you'll start to believe that what I'm telling you doesn't work and you'll go on to some other training.
you know what? I really know what you're saying right now, because we've seen a lot of the new guys come along and go, oh, I got a guy who's really motivated, really wants to sell his house. No kidding. But he wants a lot of cash and he wants a lot of it right now, and it's not what we're trying to do. So just because somebody says they want to sell their house, yeah. Do they want to sell it the way we can buy it?
Which, by the way, you're right. By the way, about 90% of all the people that we talk to don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Right? So we're back to being the auditor and performing a triage inspection. Right? Which means in the medical field, triage means in the medical field, the assignment of urgency. of wounds or illness for treatment given.
Mm-hmm.
So triage in the medical field is the assignment of urgency of wounds or illness for treatment that needs to be given.
Yeah, they prioritize that way.
Right. So now we have a triage auditor in our creative real estate system. Right? How urgent does the seller need to sell? Right? How good are the numbers? How much or how long do you have to listen to figure out all of this stuff? And this is where almost every rookie or student or whatever you want to call coming through the system fails. They spend too much time, as you stated so many podcasts ago, they're trying to convert a suspect into a prospect. They're trying to convince somebody that they should do what they have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, have you ever been to a party or been someplace and like somebody's like telling you about what they're going to do? You know, like, oh yeah, we're going to move to Paris. You know, and we're gonna eat in cafes at night, and we're gonna live this life. And you're thinking to yourself, really? How are you gonna do that? How are you gonna pay for it? Right? Or you're like, oh, okay, but don't you have like a job that took you like 20 years to get? Like, what are you gonna do about that?
Yeah.
You know, it's like I just had a partner that just did that. They lived in Connecticut and decided to move to Florida. I'm like, what about your job? Oh, no, well, you know, I could do it online. I could this, I could that. And the end of the story was, well, the hell with them. If they don't like what I'm doing, then I'll just go find another job. And he was cocky enough to think that he just had whatever they wanted. They wanted it enough, and he was like a king or a god to them. Not taking in consideration that he could be replaced and doesn't even know it. You know, it was odd to me. You know? It was like just a different flow. Now maybe he's 100% correct, and I'm the odd duck, right? But you know, anyway. So again, how urgent does the seller need to sell? How good are the numbers? How much or how long do you have to listen to figure all this stuff out? Right. So I've had, and you know, because this happened to you, I've had, you know, students stay on the line for 20 minutes or a half an hour, have this fantastic conversation, and then the person tells them, okay, well, I'll have to talk to my mother. What do you mean talk to your mother? Well, she owns the house. I'm just doing the research for her. And you were thinking you were talking, and they were just very conversational. They were very nice. They were very polite. They sounded motivated. Oh, yeah, that sounds good. Oh, yeah, that sounds good. Oh, that's a good idea. I never heard of that. And you're like, yeah, I got a deal. And then in the last 30 seconds of the phone call, they're like, okay, well, I'll bring it to the decision maker. And you're like, what?
Well, it's really funny because if you didn't know these things and haven't been through them, you wouldn't understand how important it is that when we talk to people and whatever scripts we use, one of the first questions we ask is, do you have a house for sale?
Right.
You go, well, of course they must. Not necessarily. Sometimes they're doing whatever. You don't know. So we have to ask things like, is the house actually for sale? And then right away, like, is it your name on the deed? Is it your house? Right. To avoid things like that. And you think things like that are like stupid legal questions or something. No, they're really very important things. And you may not know what isn't important, but believe me, these things got there for very good reasons.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure we correct that, because you asked them if their name is on the deed. We don't care if it's their house or not. We just need to know if they have the ability to sign the documents we need signed. So even though the deed's in their name, it could be their mother and father's house, but the deed's in their name. So what you were saying is it their house? We don't care if it's their house or not. We just need to know that they have the power to sign the documents that we need. Right?
Yep.
Which brings me to the new standard or model offer you should use each and every time you make an offer. And I'm putting here make an offer. It really should be each and every time you talk to somebody. And I'll have you know that I'm going to be kind of a jerk right now. But after I wrote this podcast, I think the same day or the next day, I actually wrote a solopreneur script.
Wait a minute, we got a new word here, folks. Solopreneur.
Right.
Is it like entrepreneur, solo entrepreneur? What is that?
So
Yeah.
our system is you text, you do an opening call, you do a closing call, and then you do a deal meeting, right? Mm-hmm. So usually, like in one of my businesses, we have a texter that's a VA, we have an opening caller that's a VA, and then I've been doing the closing calls,
Right.
which I suck at that. I haven't done them for a month. I'm afraid to even go in there. I've got 9 deals that I'm working on right now, and I don't want any more deals, but I have to go in there and make more deals.
Yeah.
Because they're there, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when we launched Creative REI Reply, which is a system that has everything in it, it's a creative real estate system in a box. Everything you want is in there, right? I ran into this earlier with my coaching stuff too, and didn't fix it then, so I had to fix it now.
Mm-hmm.
The solopreneur, in other words, the one-man gang.
Yeah.
There was a SEO company called OMG, the one-man gang.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I kind of stole their language. So those people are going to text themselves, like you're kind of doing this, and then you're going to make a phone call, and you're going to merge the opening call and the closing call together.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote the solopreneur script just for that.
Oh, cool.
And it's real simple. It's 2 pages. It's real simple, real easy. Some of it I'm going to go over here, and just verbally. But if you write it down, you could pretty much get that solopreneur script. Mm-hmm. Okay? If not, then you have to. It's not anywhere else except in Creative REI Replay, which, by the way, I've kind of stopped making my materials for flipping houses for rookies, and a lot of my effort's been going to Creative REI Replay because the training in there. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. And the stuff we put in there is, the reason why it's so good is not because of the materials, it's because it's so concise and easy to use. I mean, we have checklists for everything. When you sign on, and I'm not here to try to sell Creative REI Replay, by the way, but if you sign in, as soon as you get into the system, there's a starting checklist that takes you through starting to use the system, so you know where everything is. There's orientation videos. There's checklists for all the deals. So the idea is as you go into the system, which we're working on now, which I'm very close on having a calculator. So when you're talking to somebody on the phone, you put all the numbers into a calculator and you hit a submit button, and it tells you with lights, red, yellow, or green, whether you can do the deal, which deal you can do and which deal you can't do. Right.
That's awesome.
Then
Awesome.
Once you click on the deal, let's say it's a subject to deal, you click on the subject to deal, and a screen pops up, and the math is on the left, and what you have to make sure the seller understands is on the right, and there's a checklist, and you check them off. Like you went over this with them, you went over that with them, you went over this with them, you went over that with them, you went over this with them, and then if they say yes to all of those, or a majority of those, then you push a button, and it generates a memorandum that you can send to them and have them sign it.
So right there, you have the auditing for the financial part, like the physical, mechanical stuff. And right next to it, you have the auditing for the person qualifying. So you have both covered right there.
Right.
Just like you're talking about in the podcast. That's nuts.
That's why I'm writing the podcast, because I had to go through the development of all this stuff, and it occurred to me that this is what we're doing. Even more colloquial, what I realized is when I did this, because when we did it in the software, and I know I'm getting a little techie here, when we did it in the software, so you know how when you open up a file in Creative REI Replay, you have the person's name there, and then you can go their contact information, and then there's the property information, and then there's additional information.
Yeah.
So what I did is the additional information is where the questions are for the information that we're going to talk about here in a minute. Mm-hmm. So what I realized when I was designing, so once you do that, you click on a button, and then a pop-up window pops up with all the math in it. So what I realized when I was doing it, just kind of, I mean, it means nothing on this podcast until you see it. What it meant to me is that the numbers that are in the software itself is the discovery portion of the offer making. So you go through and answer all the questions in the discovery stage. And then once you hit submit, now you go on the closing call, you go from the discovery to making the offer because the numbers are there, and then you just decide which one you're going to talk about. And it's all done with software, and it's all automated. And I got to tell you, I get excited about very few things in real estate these days, as you're aware, because I've kind of seen it and done it all.
Yeah, after a while, how many times you got to go around the merry-go-round, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I still love it and I still do it, but the reason why this excites me is because for 20 years I've been trying to hire the perfect acquisition manager. And once I get this software done, then hiring someone to do my closing calls for me, the training is going to be super, super simple. I mean, I could literally, like, in one video in less than an hour, train a person to do my closing calls for me. Once I get this done. You know, that's where I'm heading. That's where my intentions are. So I already have the training for a texter, which is all in Creative REI Replay, because it's, you know, it's all the marketing done for you. We put leads into your account every day. We put leads of motivated sellers in your account every day. Then we have the whole what happens when they call you, what do you do? So that's the whole deal structuring thing. And then we have a third module, which is all the outsourcing. So once you start doing it and you realize you can't do it every day, you can figure out how to get VAs to do it. So the only piece of the outsourcing that I've struggled with is training the acquisition manager. And once I get this software done, it's nobody on the market has what we have in this system. And they'll copy us, I'm sure, but we are definitely the first on the market. And I'm not excited to sell it. I'm excited to use it in my own business. You know what I mean? I mean, we've already got a bunch of people in there. We did a launch, and it was 3 times better than what we thought it was going to be. It was incredible. And then we're going to do it again in October, I think October 22nd, 2022. We're going to do another webinar, and then we're just gonna roll things out. We're out in the general public with it right now. Anyways, so the system or model you should follow each time you make an offer, which, by the way, an offer is a proposal. It shouldn't really be every time you make an offer, because, I mean, I want you to have the intention when you pick up the phone and you dial somebody that you expect to leave them with numbers. You expect to leave them with an idea of what you can do. Right? Because the basic formula is find and communicate to a motivated seller. Tell them what you do, which, by the way, isn't we buy houses. It's we make monthly payments, or we'll give you a discount. That's what you do. And number 3, ask them what's needed and wanted, which is the discovery portion. And then number 4, give them what they want. Right? So that's what I want you to do. To me, an offer is successful when you're making them a proposal of what you can do based on what they want. And it's viable for you and them, right? So that to me is an offer. All right, so number 1, here we go. Number 1, this is the standard model that you should follow, that I'm trying to get you to do.
Okay.
You already said it. You are talking to someone that has a house for sale and can sign the closing documents. Right? So the qualifier is, like you said, is this house for sale? And whose name is on the deed? Now, this is done after some very short, very easy, very 3 seconds, not even 30, 3 seconds of pleasantries. You know, like, hey, Pete, how are you today? Good. You know, like, I don't even let you answer type of thing, like pleasantries. Like, so, hey, Pete, well, let's just do a quick one. So, hey, Pete, how are you today?
Oh, fine. How are you?
Good. It's Bill Hawthorne. I'm the guy that you've been texting about the house you have for sale, and I'm the buyer over here. So I have a couple questions for you. You ready?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
You got time for me? See, there's no real. The pleasantries are quick, right? You don't need to build rapport, and that whole passive aggressive pretend like you're happy and you're their friend. You're not their friend. They don't know you, so stop pretending to be their friend. That's a bunch of sales bullshit. That's so somebody could write a book.
Bill, they're not looking for a friend. Right. They're looking for somebody to buy their house. If you buy their house, they'll like you.
Exactly. Right,
you talk about building rapport by talking about the house. That's what they're trying to do, not football or the weather. Talk about the house.
Right. So number 2, did you ask how much do they want?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. So you have to ask them, what's the price?
Yep.
So you ask them, how much did you want for the house? So I would say, so Peter, so I see that you have 123 Main Street for sale. Is it for sale?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Whose name is on the deed?
It's my house and my wife.
So you and your wife are on the deed?
Yeah.
And she knows you're selling it?
Yep.
Okay, good. So how much did you want for it?
Oh, well.
Okay, so that's it. So that's see what I mean? It's that. It's like ask them how much they want. So how much did you want for it? Right? Or what's your asking price? Anything along. And the reason why I'm doing this so loosely is because I've been talking about you need to have price, payment, duration, and deposit if they talk about it. So if you listen to the script, it's right along those lines, right? Mm-hmm. So now, once they give you the price, then you need to know how'd they come up with that number.
Mm.
Right? So how'd they come up with that number? And then, did you find out why they're selling now?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And if for the money, how much do they think they would get? And what do you plan to do with that money? So let's just...
Oh, so if when they sell, the price of the house is not what they get, because they get whatever, the equity, whatever is there left. So you're asking like what they think they're going to walk away with, their portion, and what they're doing with it.
So there's an absorbent amount of technology behind what I'm doing right now. Like we've done many podcasts. I'm not trying to teach the theory here, but just to drop a few hints. Mm-hmm. First of all, here's what we're doing. We're finding out if it's need or greed.
Mm.
So need means there's a problem inside the house, with the house. Like, I don't want this house anymore. I don't want this payment anymore. I don't want to cut the grass anymore. I don't want to fix it anymore. The house is the barrier to them moving on with their life. There's something about the house that is a barrier, that's sucking their time. It's stressing them. It's making all their attention units are on this house and can't move on in life.
Yep.
That's need. Greed is, I have all this equity in this house and I'm going to cash it out. Like they're going to go down to the savings account bank, and they're going to put their savings book on the table and say, give me my money. I need to go do something else with it. Mm-hmm. So that's greed. So what we're asking them here is, why are you selling now? So we're checking on need. And if it's greed, then we want to know, okay, so, and this is very important because it's the next technical point, that we used to do all this in scripts, and now we don't need to do this anymore because I've made it like really simple. Mm. So the next thing is let's just do it both ways. Let's just quickly do it both ways. All right. So so Pete, you're asking $200,000 for the house.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So how'd you come up with that number?
Well, I just looked at some of the other houses in my neighborhood. I looked online a little bit and some of the sales recently compared to my house, and that's just a really good estimate, I think.
Okay, sounds intelligent. All right, good. So, so how long have you owned the house?
17 years.
So what made you want to sell it now? Like, what's happening that you wanted to sell it now?
Well, my wife and I have been thinking of moving into something easier to live in, and because we're getting older, and it just seems to be a good time at the market to get our best price right now. Okay,
and how much were you expecting to walk away with once you sold it?
Wow, mortgage somewhere around like 90,000, 100,000.
Okay, and what are you going to do with that money once you get it?
Well, we'll use most of it for the next place we're going to go to, keep some of it.
Okay, so that's it. See how smooth that was? But we just did a whole lot. So first of all, we found out that they owe about $110,000. Mm-hmm. Right? Because
it's like a backwards way to find out what's left on their mortgage.
And the other thing is we found out that if we're going to make them an offer, what do we have to include in our offer? Him moving to a new place and getting this money, right?
Yeah, it's not just about what we're getting. It's like, where does he go? What happens to him? If he has no place to go, no money to get there, he can't sell the house. We can't buy the house. So we have to consider their side of the story.
Right. Okay, so now let's do the other scenario, because we just did greed. Let's do need, okay? So, Pete, you're asking $200,000 for the house, correct? So how did you come up with that number?
Just comps in the area. I looked on some websites from my area. It seems to be about right.
Okay, good. And so what made you decide to sell the property now?
We both got retired recently, and it's a little bit tight money-wise to keep this up, and we just can't keep up the payments like this.
Okay, are you behind on payments?
No, but we're going to get close.
Okay.
We're using some savings, but I'm not going to use my savings to pay for the house. I gotta cut back and just live within my current means as a retired person. So we gotta move something smaller. We don't need all this.
Good. So
I can't say.
How soon did you want to move?
I don't have to move immediately, but it's cutting into my savings. So I'd say the sooner the better. It's going to be better for us. So kind of right away would be fine.
Okay, good. So you kind of gave us a shitty example because you're not real. You're not really motivated because you have a savings, right? So a need would be somebody that, like, just for example, let's just do one like you're in foreclosure. Okay.
I'll tell you about the guy I talked to yesterday. How's that?
So I mean, because that one that you have. So basically, at this particular point, now I haven't finished the script with him yet, but I could tell you right now, it tipped my hat off to this guy's not really motivated. He is, but he's not.
The money isn't good, but he has a little time. He's not like it has to be tomorrow morning or he's screwed.
Right. So he's motivated if he gets a good deal. If he gets a good deal, he's not worried about me if he gets a good deal. Right.
Okay.
So Pete, you want $200,000 for the house, right? So how'd you come up with that number?
Just estimates of what the prices are going in my neighborhood.
Okay. So let's stop for a second. So I'm going to coach you on coaching. Why don't you say that's how much money I owe and you're in foreclosure?
Oh, okay.
Okay. So how much you're selling a house for $200,000? Is that correct? Okay, good. So how'd you come up with that number?
That's what I need to get to pay the house off because I'm in foreclosure.
Oh, how many payments are you behind?
About 6.
Okay. And what is the bank doing?
They're not doing anything to help me, I'll tell you that. I asked for modification or forbearance. They're not doing any of that. So it hit the courts. So I have some delays and some extensions, but I have to sell the house.
Okay, good. So that's it. So that's a dramatic way of doing it, but that's a need deal. So the middle one, cut out the middle one, but the first deal we did was a greed deal. And then the second one was a need deal. Now, I'm not trying to teach you all the technology behind this, but here's the point is, if you just follow these scripts, you're automatically, I've built in these questions so you know what to do. So the first thing we're going to do, to recap, is we're going to ask, right, who is the house for sale and whose name is on the deed? So you know you're talking to the right person. Then the second thing you're going to ask them is how much do they want for the house? How much are they asking? Then the third thing is, once you've established all of this, which we just spoke about, you respond with, so Peter says, so on the greed one, Peter says, well, I want $200,000 for the house, and I asked him, how he came up with the numbers and how he wants $100,000 and all that kind of stuff, right? He wants $200,000 so he can get $100,000 so he can move. So the second thing is, once you've established all that, you say, well, the way I could pay you the $200,000 is to give you monthly payments until I can pay you off. Have you ever heard of that?
That's interesting. I never asked to have you heard of that. That's good, because some people think it's some new crazy thing, and it's not. So that's a good one.
So then if they say yes, get a payment amount by asking how much did they want. Or like in the foreclosure proceeding, I would ask, how much are they paying now? How much is the payment now? Right. So if it's a free and clear house, you have to ask them how much do they want for a payment. Right. because there is no mortgage. But if it's a mortgaged house, then you would ask them how much you're going to pay. Well, I pay $1,350. Okay, that's how much I'm going to give you. Okay.
You know, that just cleared something up for me because I've seen you do it both ways, and I didn't realize how simple it was that if it's free and clear and no mortgage, you just ask what they want as long as they don't want everything. But in the mortgage scenario, that's what you pay.
Right. So when we do the math on the payments, we use this thing called a MAP, like a road map. It's maximum allowable payment. And that formula is income, right? Whatever the income is, which is not just rent. Sometimes it's income from garages and laundry and, they rent a parking lot. There's all different kinds of reasons. So you take income, multiply it by 85%. You subtract the taxes, insurance, HOA fee, and anything else they might pay, and that's the maximum allowable payment you could make. Maximum being the key word there. So you negotiate from there. So if the income is $1,500 and the MAP formula is $900, you're probably going to start at $600 or $700 for negotiating on a payment. Now, be very careful because when you're negotiating a payment like that to $600 or $700, you have to make sure they realize that you're not paying $600 or $700 because you have to put the taxes and the insurance and the HOA and all that stuff on top of it, right? But they're going to get
expenses. You're paying the expenses,
right? But they think you're just paying because I've done that. I've made mistakes where they think I'm just paying $500 a month, and then they go tell their friends, "Oh, he's giving me $500 a month." They're like, "What are you nuts?" and blow the deals up.
Oh, no, so the $500 is what they're actually getting after you've done.
I was technically paying $1,200, but she told her friend it was $500 and it blew the deal up. So you have to be careful with that, right? So
well, you could be very specific and say, I'm paying $1,200.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, $1,200.
It's on a free and clear house. On a free and clear house, you have to do all that.
Right.
On a property that has a mortgage, you just say, how much are you paying now? Oh, you're paying $1,350. Perfect. That's how much I'll pay. And then just stop talking.
If there's room in the deal and they need some cash flow, you can add a little bit as long as it follows the formula and there's some decent cash flow for us.
Right. So I forgot something, so I want to go back to one. I hope I don't confuse anybody. I want to go back to the price.
Okay.
And it also pertains to the payment. So one of the major negotiating factors that you should have in any negotiating skill at all is, first of all, the person who wants it the least has the most power. And the second most major negotiating law is don't talk about the price, talk about what they're going to get. So like in the house, in the first one, it's like, okay, you're going to get $100,000. You negotiate the $100,000, like, would you consider $70,000? You don't say, you don't say to them, okay, would you take the price of the house? Would you take $170,000? You negotiate just what they're going to get, and you work on it. And it's the same way with the payment. Like what you're saying is if they want more than a payment, well, okay, so they want to make $300 a month profit. Okay, would you take $200 a month profit? You don't talk about the whole payment because otherwise it skews their way of thinking. I'm getting a little too more deep than I wanted to here. So number one, we're going to ask the price. Number two, we just talked about the payment, right? Now watch this. So we said, well, the way that I can pay you $200,000 is to give you monthly payments until I could pay it off. Have you ever heard of that? And then they say, yeah, how does that work? And then we talk about everything we just talked about. Now watch this. And this is the part that's been vague and that I'm trying to really clarify today. If they say, no, I'm not willing to take payments, which, by the way, is how many percentage of the people? I told you already. 97% will say no, right? So if they say no to payments, you tell them that that's perfectly fine. What's the least you could take for all cash? Now, here's the confusion. Here is the confusion. Let me just read my notes here. Okay, so here is the confusion. Too many people in our society have actually considered creative real estate equal to no money? I'm actually going to cover this next week in the podcast next week, which, by the way, I took your advice. Next week's podcast, episode 325, is called For Creative Real Estate Rookies Who Want to Learn Profitable Deal Structuring Easily. We're going to do examples of deals. But I define creative real estate in there because creative real estate is not no money down. It's not no money at all. It's not, I know my grammar is wrong right now, but it's not equal to no money. And I'm going to cover that next week in the podcast. The point that I'm trying to make here is creative real estate is a leverage point. So you want to leverage as much money. If you say you got $20,000, you want to leverage $20,000 as much as you can. Like, for example, I think I did this many podcasts ago. You got $20,000, you could buy one house worth $100,000 and get a loan and put down 20%.
Yep.
Or you can get a different loan officer and put down 10% and get two houses. So now instead of having $100,000 worth of equity for your $20,000 or $100,000 in assets for your $100,000, I'll do that again. Instead of having $100,000 for your $20,000 investment, if you put down 10%, you can have two houses worth $100,000. So now that $20,000 just went into $200,000. Or you could put down $5,000 for each property and get four houses. Or you could put down $2,500 for each property and get 8 houses. Or you could do like what we do, and you use the $20,000 for marketing and get 20 houses and be worth $1 million for that $20,000.
Yep.
Right? That's a creative real estate investor, the leverage point. So you want to have the most leverage for the least amount of resources you can. That's why you study creative real estate. That's why you're here listening to me. That's why I fascinate you. That's why you're in this arena, because you're looking to make the most with the least.
All right. Now here's the opposite, because I talked to this guy this week. Wants to take $300,000 cash out of the bank, he and his mother, buy a house cash that I have, and make $1,000 a month. So there's people that'll put $300,000 out to make $1,000. To me, that's the opposite.
Here's my point: is that you're talking about apples and oranges, because we talked about very long time ago that we are creative real estate entrepreneurs. We're the ones that put all the resources together. When you're a real estate investor, that assumes you have the money and you're just looking for a rate of return on the money. You don't want to do other work. You don't want to learn how to talk to sellers. You just want to, like, here's my money, make it work, give me my return. Where's my yield? Right? You do something else in life, and you don't have time to do all the mechanics that we do. Right? So, I don't know why I'm off on this tangent, but the point is that with creative real estate, I know what it was. So in many cases, when you're talking about the discount, right? And this is huge. I had this big realization when we were down at the Jay Conner event, right, last year.
The private lending.
Yeah, I had this big realization because I always thought if you bought with cash, you sold with cash. If you bought on terms, you sold with terms. And that's been shattered in my mind, and now I'm doing those deals the other way. And what that means is if as long as they're willing to give you a 20 or 30%, preferably 30% discount, then you can pay for cash.
Yep.
The trick is that you're not going to sell for cash. You're not going to sell for cash. What you're going to do is if they'll give you a 30% discount, and you could pay 70 cents on a dollar, you can go borrow IRA money, which we did a whole podcast on that, and we use Quest Trust to do that, and we tell you in that podcast. I'll give you the podcast number right now. We tell you in that podcast how to do that, how you get private lenders, IRA lenders, all that kind of stuff. It was, let me see here. Yeah, I can't find it.
that 3 months ago?
Was it that long ago? That's what I had trouble with. Is it was a lot.
I think it was. Yeah, that was Alice from Quest.
Yeah.
We met her down at North Carolina at the J. Conner Private Lending weekend workshop. She's one of the vice presidents there.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. I don't know. I have attention on it. We have blank here. So, anyways, just go search. If you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, you go to podcast on the top, and you go into the search engine, and it will find it for you. Just put in there IRA money. The point is that if they tell you 70 cents on a dollar, then you're going to go find retirement money and borrow that money for 5 or 7 years, so you could do a lease option. So now, without getting into the math, and we're going to do this next week, without getting into the math, think of this. You're buying at 70 cents on a dollar, selling for 110%. You got 40% equity in there, never mind the cash flow and everything else. So that's creative real estate. Even though you're paying cash, you're taking a cash deal and turning it into creative real estate.
Yep.
So
that's Bill. That's really creative. Yeah. Really, to mix things like that, that's nuts.
Right. So my point is that when you're doing that at this payment point, right? So you're asking them if they're willing to take a payment, and in that case, you could pay up to 110% of what they owe the property, or what they want, what the property's worth. Right? My statement's always been, I'll pay your price as long as I get to pick the terms. So in this payment section, that's what you're doing, right? Okay. So number 4, right? So we're on number 4, and I'm going to breeze through these in a minute so we can go back to them, right? So if you've not made a deal yet, which by the way, I skipped over the deposit because, actually, let me do that real quick. So the deposit money, if they ask for a deposit, which is technically the 4th step, all you have to tell them is look, one of my profit centers is the difference between what I have to pay you for down payment and what I collect from my buyer. So what's the least you could do? The rule of thumb is always that you're going to get between 3 and 5% from your buyer for down payment. So use the lower number, which is 3%. So you can promise up to 50% of the 3%.
Yep.
So if it's a $200,000 house, that means you're going to get $6,000 down, right? 3% of $200,000, $6,000. So the most you could give the seller is $3,000.
Half of that. Yeah.
If you think you can get 5%, which I wouldn't gamble with that money, but if you think you can get 5%, that would be $10,000. You can not offer them more than 50%, which is $5,000, right?
Yeah.
So you're not coming up, which is another confusion with a lot of rookies. You're not coming up with the money; it's coming from the buyer, and you tell the seller that when I find my buyer, I will get the money from them. Okay. Now, if all that doesn't work and you don't make a deal, right? You ask, what would have to happen for me to buy your house today? That's the system. Okay, so I'm going to rattle because we're almost at the hour and I still have a couple more pages of notes here. So, so the system is price, payment, duration of the payment. So once you settle on, okay, I'll make it $1,350, right? You decide on how long. Now, the only time that I ever decide on duration, by the way, is if I'm giving them like a second mortgage or they want to pay off. Otherwise, I tell them the duration's 30 years. We'll go as low as 7 years if we have to. Right? You want to go as long as you can. Okay, so you got duration. So you got price, price, payment, duration, deposit, and down payment if they talk about it. Okay. So here's the most important part that most don't know. Like I said, 97% of the sellers will not want to do this.
Yep.
They're suspects in our system. Okay, here's what we know. If you have more no's than yeses, I already talked about this, in our little model of sequence here, offer sequence. So if you use this model to check if you use it to do the script, and you use it to check to make sure you got all the data points, then you're going to hear more yeses than nos, or more nos than yeses.
That's very true.
They're suspects stealing your dreams. Don't try to convert them until you have at least talk to 100 or more sellers. So don't start trying to convert people until you've talked to at least 100 sellers. Okay, that's the rule. And feel qualified without disappointment. So if you talk to 100 people, you feel qualified and you won't be disappointed. If you don't feel the deal can be done with our knowledge or resources, right? So in other words, if the deal can't be done with what you know or your resources, just move on. Don't set yourself up for loss or a failed offer. Is this making sense, Peter?
Don't sell hamburgers to vegans.
Yeah, exactly. Because I want to get to the secret for success, creating real estate and making a lot of money. Okay. I've told our listeners many, many, many times the best coach in the world is them listening to their own recordings of talking to sellers. But what I missed until now, and the big breakthrough today, is the model offer to follow or imitate, which we just went through.
Okay.
So the rookie can now record his or her calls and play them back and see if they stuck to the layout that we just described as our successful actions. Did they ask those questions just the way we just did?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So here's the punchline. You don't create or make someone motivated. You said that earlier. Especially with supposedly hypnotic words or sentences. You have to find a motivated seller. So by using this little system that we just talked about, right, today, you'll soon realize quickly that your lack of knowledge is not the barrier. See, too many rookies are beating themselves up and saying, well, I blew that deal. I should have said this, or I should have said that. Or they'll talk to somebody and they'll come listen to us, and I'll say something like, oh man, I should have told that guy back then, 45 years ago, I should have said that to him. And he would have sold me the house. Don't do that. Because you drive yourself crazy. Only because when that happens on a call, you can pass on a deal. Because you think you don't know something, you have a scarcity mentality thinking that there's not enough deals out there. When really 97% of the people that you're going to talk to aren't going to want to do this. So if it was me, and I'm not, and I told this to, I coach with somebody else's group, and I told this to one of the guys in there. It's like, what you should do is you should go to the store and get a poster board. And you should put it up on the wall. And what I would do is I would start at 100 and do a countdown to 1. And I would put the number 100 and I would leave a space, and I would put the person's name that I talked to there. And then 99, the person's name that I talked to. And then 90, and then I have person names to talk to. And I would want to get through that poster board as fast as I could.
Yep.
And what I would do is this is what I would do. I'm not telling you to do this. I would get highlighters. I would get a red, yellow, and green. And I would highlight them. If they were a suspect, they're red. If you think you can do something with them, like with a return phone call, I would make them yellow, and then the good ones would be green. I promise you, I promise you with everything I have, I'll bet you $1,000, I'll bet you $5,000, I'll bet you $10,000. By the time you hit 100, if you use the model offer that I just gave to you, and I use it the way I just explained it to you, by the time you get to number one, you'll have more than a deal. So, in a nutshell, after it's taken me 63 minutes to say this, here's what I'm saying. You're looking for the low-hanging fruit. Point is, the model offer system that I just explained to you will allow you to weed out suspects that are holding you back from making you believe you can't do this. Or you're not smart enough. You need to pre-qualify quickly. That's the difference between me and you. As I see it a mile away. And now I'm giving you this model offer system. Being an auditor is what I'm calling it. And you're qualifying right away if they're good or bad. The biggest problem that I have in teaching is my attitude, because I got a bad attitude.
What do you mean?
You know this when I'm talking to sales. I'm very polite, but because I hear people tell me that all the time. But you have to prove to me that I need to keep spending time with you when you're a seller.
Well, you're very quick to say, no, I can't do that.
Right.
And you should. I've been in house with you. Like, I don't think after like 3 minutes, you look at the seller and you go, I don't think I'm your guy. And my heart drops. Like, I spent 5 days getting this guy. Right. But that's just the beginning of the conversation. Then it goes on from there. But you pull back and you go.
Well, they need to prove to me that I should do this deal. They need to qualify for me their intentions.
Yeah.
They need to be flexible. They need to at least listen. I'm not telling them to do the deal. They need to just be flexible enough to talk about it. Not have this like ridgy, hard, uncomfortable, bumpy conversation.
Yeah.
Right? Where I'm trying to, every syllable that comes out of my mouth, I'm trying to convince them that they should do this. I need to get rid of that guy. As we say, as Ron LeGrand says, whack him. Get rid of him. Get them out of your life. They're sucking you dry.
You know, it's weird. If you think about it, any sales is like this.
Yeah.
People that come to the door, you need a new roof. No. You need a new window. No. You need a new driveway. Yes. You just got to keep going till you found the person that needs you. I mean, how many people walk by a restaurant before 2 people walk in?
Right.
You know, it's not everybody wants everything. You go in a supermarket, not everybody buys a chicken.
So
you have to find the people that want your product.
We need to go, but I just want to say this one thing. And we could talk about this offline if you want. Right now, because I always have little self projects that I do outside of work. And right now, I am in I fell into this weird research. And the research is about your environment. And the thing that's come to my focus is that we take our environments for granted, and what the research is that you can actually program your environment to be conducive for what you want. And let me just give you a quick synopsis of this. I know we're 7 minutes past, but just think of this. The saying is, birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah.
So if the birds you're flying with aren't in the right group, then maybe you need to get a new group. But it's an odd thing to like. I've been reading. I mean, I'm reading a book now that was written, I think, in the 40s, and this author is freaking. I mean, it's about persuasion, and it is. I mean, it's just one of probably the 4th book that I read on your environment. It's so obvious that nobody talks about it. And success, believe it or not, is made or not made because of your environment. It's incredible.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right, so you need to pre-qualify quickly and decide quickly if they deserve your time and resources or not. Once you learn these little tricks that I've showed you today, you'll find the 97% of the people are just wasting your time and they aren't leads. And you can find the one that will make you a fortune. You only need one. You'll be on the road to recovery. Okay? So I went a little bit longer than normal today. We're 8 minutes past the hour, excuse me. So let's get out of here. Don't forget to leave us a review. Make sure you subscribe to our channel wherever you're listening to us or watching us. And if you have any questions at all, personal questions, you can do one of two things. We have a WhatsApp group called Let's Talk Real Estate. You can get in there. It's a free group, which is a group chat. Or you can go to Flipping Houses for Rookies and send me a support ticket. Okay? So with that said, make sure you check out the link in the description. And we're over and out. Thanks for being with us today. We'll talk to you at podcast number 325.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.